So you want to have your guests feel extra special at your gala event, even those that have special dietary needs. But you don't know where to start or even how to ask the question. Or how do you accommodate everyone without it being problematic? Hi, my name is Jillian D'Souza with Caribbean Caterers. For your gala, there are hundreds of guests. You know how to make your event wheelchair accessible, but do you know how to accommodate many and varied dietary restrictions or preferences or things that people are concerned about that they consume? Well, let's talk about that. I'll give you some tips and tricks on how to accomplish this starting at the very beginning. Just asking the question. So how do you ask the question? Well, nowadays there are many dietary restrictions, as you know, or preferences sometimes. There are even allergies that you have to account for. So first things first, you just have to ask that question to each of your guests. Typically by some sort of electronic poll or survey at the time that your guests RSVP. So gone are those days when we used to, tabulate by hand people's requests and so on. Now, because people can have multiple dietary restrictions, needs, or preferences, you want to be able to ask them that question electronically. You want to be able to ask them that question very specifically, and you want them to be able to give multiple answers to that question. And we will talk in another video how we handle those multiple answers in order to come up with the best menu as well. But the thing you want to do, whether you're using a survey or even a handwritten questionnaire, or if they just filled out something on a card and returned it to you, but trust me, electronic is so much easier. But however you decide to ask the question, this is the first big thing you want to do. You want to ask the question very clearly. Now, that might seem like, okay, Jillian, what do you mean? I'm just asking the question. Well, the question must not be ambiguous. It should not have too many options listed. Think through all of the options. For instance, gluten-free, lactose intolerant, or lactose-free. Of course, there's vegan or vegetarian. There's nut allergies, not just nuts. There's regular nuts, there's tree nuts, there's nut oils, the oils of those nuts. Some people are even allergic to things like mango or coconut. So you first have to determine just how far you want to go with polling, asking your questions. People who have allergies that are very specific, especially if they are severe, they know how to ask the right questions even at the dinner itself to ensure that they are not consuming something that would be objectionable to them. And in another video, we will talk about menu cards and how we can at least tell everybody what's in that menu item so people can take responsibility for their own allergies, especially when they are those outliers, not the very usual ones. So the first thing to decide is which questions are you going to ask. You want to be inclusive, but you also want to make sure that your list isn't so very long that people get confused. And so if you are doing a gala for an organization that is concerned with certain things, like it may be an organization that is going back to the earth, back to basics about planting, farming or something of the sort, we may want to consider a menu that's farm to table as opposed to anything else, as we do here at Caribbean Caterers, farm to table. So we would have that covered in that case. But you see, the point I'm making here is that your very organization or the cause that you're supporting could indeed suggest some of the things that your guests might be concerned with in terms of the type of foods that they consume and the menus that they would want. So you want to take a look at that. If that's not the case for you, then you stay middle of the road with the basic restrictions that people have. Like we said the list before: gluten-free, lactose-free, vegan, vegetarian, different types of nuts. I didn't mention before shellfish, but that's also an area as well. And use that as your gauge for what that list should be. Now that you've got the list of things that you want to ask people if they're concerned with, you want to give them, especially if you do this electronically, you want to give them the opportunity to select multiple options, because we find it very common that people may have multiple things that they would have to stay away from, whatever the reason they're staying away from these things. Usually there are multiple things. So you want to be able to allow your guests to select multiple allergies as well, or restrictions or preferences. And again, in another video, we would talk about how you would use that information in order to actually determine your menu for your guests. So the trick to all of this is, once you've asked the question and your data begins to come back, it's in tabulating that data carefully and translating that to the catering team. But again, we would help you with that and explain exactly how that is done once you get in touch with us. So, to summarize, be very clear. List all the major allergies that your guests may be concerned with, and find an electronic way that can pull this information and gather this data for you. Ensure that you have a way to select, that the guests could select multiple options on there, and then finally ensure that you tabulate this information along with your caterer to be able to do two main things properly. One, to then go ahead and define that menu that would excite your guests and have them feel very special at your event as well. And two, to deliver that menu expertly to those guests so that they are not waiting and that they can dine along with the rest of the other guests at their table. So there are a few nuggets for you as to how to ask your guests about their dietary restrictions. Please give us a call. We can help you further with that. And as you see, there are many other pieces to the puzzle that we will fill out for you in additional videos. So this is Jillian, Caribbean Caterers. Talk with you soon.